Well, everyone, welcome back to another to the Blind Podcast. Everybody's doing well on this Thursday evening. We're almost through another week, but the sports calendar never stops. We have a lot to get into tonight. A few programming notes before we get going on to sports. Last evening, I had a great NHL season preview show with my boys Casey Ward and Seamus Fillmore. If you have not heard that one yet, that's available on YouTube. It's available on Facebook, obviously on the podcast. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. So check that one out. It's one of the longest podcasts I've done, but it was also so much fun. We rank our top 10 best players. We go into every Canadian team in great detail to get you guys primed for next week. Monday, I'll be doing my two-show format like I usually do for Thanksgiving. And on that Monday, I'll also talk about kind of some teams to look out for. I talked about New Jersey last night, how I'm interested in watching them play this season. I'm going to give you 5 players I think will have either big season or just going to be interesting for me to touch on this upcoming season. So I'll do that on Monday's show in the NHL/others podcast. I'll touch on the matchups Tuesday night. We got Seattle and Vegas, and we got Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay. We'll see Tampa obviously raised Lord Stanley as well. So a lot to get into there. But today, this week, what I've heard more than anything, and it's funny because you hear from a lot of pundits or talking hairdos, as I like to call them. In the States, they never talk about baseball. And really, in Canada, they talk about the Blue Jays. And I call that lazy reporting. On the mothership on Fox, it's all about football or basketball. They really aren't that. They hire a lot of people to talk about 2 sports. They'll get into the UFC. They'll touch on boxing when there's a big fight, which there is this weekend between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder 3. I'd like to somehow get my hands on that fight. But there's never any talk about baseball. But then we get to game 162 and it's over. We get to the playoffs and then we start to see some coverage. Get Up, First Take. They talk about baseball like they've cared about it for the last 180 days, but we all know they don't. They care about Dak Prescott's contract, or is Ezekiel Elliott still fast? Is Tom Brady over the hill? Is he falling off the cliff? These are the type of narratives, what we hear all summer long. Is Aaron Rodgers returning to the Green Bay Packers for the 48th day in a row? Not, how's Aaron Judge's slash line? Is Lance Lynn quietly going to win a Cy Young? How tight are Robbie Ray's pants? We just don't hear a lot of this from the mass media. The San Francisco Giants, before the season, were projected to win 75 games. They ended up winning 107, crushing Vegas, and I'm sure a lot of bettors around the world as well. And I can put myself in that. I'd like to cover more baseball than I did. Occasionally, I've recently bought packages so I get more access to games, but around in Canada, they only show the damn Blue Jays, and believe me, nobody gets more frustrated over that than me. Watching the same team over and over again is not my thing. That's a fan's calling. I'm not a fan. I'm a sports fan, not an individual team's fan. But I've definitely watched more baseball. I've talked about baseball more than these shows. But what do we hear about when we hear one game wild card between the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees? I-95, the Blue Bloods, the best rivalry in baseball. Well, there's a complaint that it's a one-game wild card. Why not make it best 2 out of 3? This isn't fair. Well, let me just ponder this thought and throw this onto you guys. Would there be this outpour, this clamoring for best 2 out of 3 if, say, the Cincinnati Reds were playing, I don't know, San Diego Padres? Would people still want 2 out of 3? With these shows, would fans still want a best 2 out of 3? And the answer is no, because nobody would want to watch best 2 out of 3 of Cincinnati and San Diego. They just wouldn't. I don't care what anybody says. There's 2 series in the NLDS, ALCS that people won't care about. And that's honestly the truth. This Houston-Chicago White Sox series, game 1 ongoing right now. I'll keep you updated throughout the show. It's 3-0 thus far for the Houston Astros. Lance McCullers Jr. has been dealing through 4. But who cares? That series is not going to be talked about unless the Houston Astros continue to progress. And people will start to care if the Astros get close to the World Series and the Dodgers get to the World Series, because people want that rematch because of 2017 and all the drama that came with it. But nobody cares about that series right now. The other one is Atlanta-Milwaukee. That will never be talked about because the other series is is Los Angeles and San Francisco, the 2 best teams in baseball. And of course, it has the Dodgers. And what do we hear from everybody? Dodgers, Yankees. That's all that gets talked about from the mass media. It's those 2 teams. And again, it's lazy reporting. But beyond what they say, well, best 2 out of 3 when there's 2 teams that you care about. If the Dodgers had lost last night, I'm sure we would have heard it again today. It's not fair that a team that won 106 games was out in 1-game playoff. Okay. Well, in 2007, the New England Patriots had to play in the divisional round and the championship game before they got to the Super Bowl. They were 16-0. Was it fair that they had to play 2 games before they get to the Super Bowl? Yeah, because it's called the format. That's just how it works. The Seattle Mariners in 2001 won 112 games. They didn't even make it to the championship series. It's called sports. Anything can happen. And for me personally, last night's game between the Cardinals and Dodgers was exactly why you book 1-game playoffs. It's exactly why the NFL will never change from having single elimination, because it's riveting, because it's so damn entertaining. I wanted to go to bed last night. Dodgers, Cardinals. Baseball games are long and the pitching changes. And a lot of guys were fighting off at bats last night on both sides. We saw these two games. Starting pitchers don't go long anymore. You think playoffs, maybe they'll stretch it out. Maybe we'll see a starting pitcher actually get to a 6th inning. No. The most innings pitched by a starting pitcher thus far in the playoffs is 5 1/3 by Adam Wainwright. Back in the day, you don't even think about going to the bullpen. And I get it has changed with analytics, but still managers are hook, give them the hook. But last night, Cardinals, Dodgers, you get to a 9th inning, a tie ball game, and you see a walk-off dinger in front of a full crowd at Chavez Ravine. That's exactly what you want. TBS last night got their money's worth. You got to see Max Scherzer pitch. You got to see Adam Wainwright at 40 years old pitch better than Max Scherzer. Just be honest here. And you got to see a walk-off dinger. You got to see Magic Johnson in the crowd. What more could you have asked for? Magic Johnson sitting with Billie Jean King. Pretty cool as a sports person here. But what more? And also you saw Juan Soto, the Washington Nationals great outfielder, sporting a Trey Turner jersey, his former teammate. I thought that was pretty cool as well. But this clamoring and the petty and people complaining, and even the Blue Jays fans and Blue Jays media like Tim and Sid or Tim and Friends, whatever it is now that the other guy went start cooking breakfast. Like the Blue Jays had 162 games to prove that they were better than the Red Sox and Yankees. They didn't. There's no other schedule that gives you more leeway to be more successful. 162 games. You do not need more time. And for me personally, I don't want the playoffs expanded in baseball. I like it just the way it is. 1-game playoff. Win your division. That's what it tells me. For all these people complaining, win your division. Then you don't have to play in the wild card game. Be better than the rest. For the Dodgers, I get it a little bit because you won 106 games. I do think reseeding would be better. I wish the Dodgers and Giants were not playing each other in the divisional series because they're better than Milwaukee and Atlanta. They should play in the National League Championship Series. But they knew the rules before the season started, so I'm not going to bitch about it too much. It's just the way it is. But for the people complaining and we got to expand the playoffs. And no. The playoffs got expanded last year. What happened to the Blue Jays? They got spanked by the Rays. And for all the people wondering, I wonder what happened. The Rays would have beat the Blue Jays. Okay? The Rays would have beat the Yankees. Sorry, Casey. And the Rays are going to beat the Boston Red Sox. Because the Tampa Bay Rays are damn consistent. They might not have the best player at any position on their team, including starting pitching, but they have above average players at every position. And that's what makes them so durable. They have the 26th ranked payroll in all of baseball. The Dodgers are first. The Dodgers spent over $200 million more than the Tampa Bay Rays. Yet the Dodgers only got 6 more wins, and the Dodgers didn't win a division. And you could argue the Rays played in a much tougher division because you had 4 teams went over 90 games. Dodgers were in a division where the Padres fell off, and you had this obviously San Francisco, but Diamondbacks stunk, Rockies stink, and the Padres down the stretch were a shell of themselves. So I think it's great. This week for baseball is exactly what you want. You want to get people excited for these divisional series. You at least want to think, okay, maybe somebody's going to watch the game tonight. And as we touch on that, the Houston Astros in the bottom of the 4th, Michael Brantley singled, brings in 2 men. Lance Lynn, he was having a tough night. 6 hits, 5 earned, 2 walk. He's likely coming out soon. But it looks like the Astros, they got a stranglehold on game 1 down there in Houston. But you want to at least get the interest going. I think if the Yankees would have won, I think tonight's game would have gotten better viewership. But you have a Thursday night football game tonight, even with baseball playoffs, and I'm going to watch both. But we're going to look at the ratings tomorrow, and MLB would have prayed for a Cincinnati-Jacksonville last Thursday night football game. They would have prayed for that matchup. Tonight you have Rams at Seahawks. NFC West showdown. Yeah, I'll take that for $100, Alex. I like that one. That sounds like a pretty good game. Again, I'm going to watch both, but if I had to pick one or the other, I'm going with football. But as we get to the postseason, before we move on to the divisional series, I have to touch on Red Sox Yankees. The Yankees, obviously Aaron Boone, as being talked about, as potentially being out the door. The Yankees have won 1 World Series in the last 17 years, back in 2009. And anytime they don't get the World Series, which is often, they're talked about, we got to fire the manager. We got to make wholesale changes. Well, one thing I can say, Aaron Boone did not sign Garrett Cole to a $324 million contract. That would be Brian Cashman. Brian Cashman has 1 year left on his deal. Garrett Cole, yeah, he had a tough year. I get it. You might have went through COVID. Yep, they banned the sticky stuff, so you couldn't cheat anymore. But you go into a single elimination game. You're paid the highest contract in the history of baseball a pitcher has ever got. $324 million, just to repeat it. And you go 2 innings. 2 innings? I can't comprehend it. It just can't happen. The New York Yankees rely on you to be that guy in the moment. Yes, Max Scherzer was not great last night for the Dodgers. Yes, Adam Wainwright was not perfect. Eovaldi was the best out of all the wildcard pitchers, but he didn't lose the game for the team. You could argue Garrett Cole did. 2 innings, and you have to go to a bullpen that's not exactly stacked with elite pitchers. Clay Holmes is a deadline acquisition. He pitched very well last night, or Tuesday night for the Yankees. But I look at Garrett Cole. Okay, you've gone through some stuff, but Nathan Eovaldi on the opposition has gone through 2 Tommy John surgeries. 2. Back in the day, you're done. Even now, Tim Lincecum, after he had 1 Tommy John, he was never the same pitcher. He was talked about being the next big prospect in baseball. It ruined his career. Eovaldi has had it twice. And he's come back and he pitches a gem for the Boston Red Sox, and he pushed them into the divisional series, where Boston was another team before the season that a lot of people didn't have making the playoffs. So Aaron Boone can be talked about because the team wasn't great. But you look at the roster. Aaron Judge, Stanton, Gallo, those three players, Gary Sanchez, I'll put right in there as well. The only thing they're up at bat to do is hit it over the wall. They're likely not going to single. They're not going to double. They'll strike out or they're going to hit a home run. Judge, I think, has improved his game some. I think he had a really solid season. Down the stretch in September, they would not have made the playoffs without Aaron Judge. But for the most part, that's what these guys do. Joey Gallo didn't make sense to me as an acquisition because you already had two sluggers. I still like the old school philosophy of baseball where you can have a guy that, you can have a guy that hits a bunch of dingers. And I think this is one reason why the Blue Jays didn't win in 15 or 16. They had too many guys that just swung for the fences. Bautista, Encarnacion, Donaldson, Tulo, even Russ Martin. These guys are all home run hitters, which is good. But when that dries up, you need guys that are playing small ball that can get a single, can, bust out an infield single to give you some momentum, that will lay down a bunt. I still think that holds weight in the game today. And you never see it, but you do see teams that can play every which way. I still look at the Houston Astros and they're getting, they get crushed as cheaters for good reason. But you look at that lineup, it's so balanced. Altuve can hit it wherever you need him to. Bregman, Correa, Yordan Alvarez is kind of their home run hitter. So they have one kind of, king of the home run. But other than that, they have distribution throughout their lineup. And it helps. To me, they won their division because of that. I'm sure the White Sox are similar, but I look at the Astros lineup and just say, I don't see a weakness because they can play any game you want them to. Of course, starting pitching helps when you have guys like McCullers, and they did this the whole season without Justin Verlander. He had Tommy John surgery, and they're in this position. But, Framber Valdez was fantastic for them. I mentioned Lance McCullers Jr. They just have guys that can step in there and pitch. Jose Urquidy. But having a balanced lineup is still more effective to me. And that's how I'd want to build a team more than just put a bunch of sluggers up there and hope that they have the right day and hit one over the wall. And I don't think we've seen enough of that from the New York Yankees. But we've already seen a couple firings. The Mets informed Luis Rojas that he will not be returning. They didn't pick up his option on his contract. Tingler has been fired in San Diego after they had big expectations. They got Darvish. Tatis got his big deal. They traded for Manny Machado. And to miss the playoffs is a failure of a season, point blank. So they got to retool. Hope Mike Clevenger can pitch well next season and see if they can. It's going to be a tough division, of course, with those two teams, with Dodgers and Giants. But we'll see if they can retool and get better heading into next season. But would it shock me if Aaron Boone was fired? No. But I also think you got to look around and say, who are you bringing in? And, the Angels hired Joe Madden a number of years back. And I think Joe Madden's a good manager. Obviously, he won a World Series in Chicago. But if you don't have pitching, if you don't have these certain things, you're not going to win. Joe Madden has not made the playoffs since joining the Angels. And I still think he's a good manager. But if you don't have the requisite parts to help you get there, to be a successful team, I don't think you're going to win. And I look at the Yankees and just Aaron Boone, because he's getting the muds threw at him. What do you expect? Again, you're relying on your guys to hit home runs to outscore the opponent, because Corey Kluber and Luis Severino, who's out all year, and Jamison Tylon and Aroldis Chapman, who's been erratic because he can't seem to hit the strike zone anymore. It's bit pieces that aren't going to win you a championship. And sometimes I just think you got to look at the GM and say, what have you given me here? And certain teams just look at the coach. I think you got to look upstairs occasionally. And for me, Brian Cashman is more at fault than Aaron Boone because he did not have a winning team. Again, the Yankees, maybe they beat the Red Sox. Great. They're not beating the Rays. Just they're not. They're not as good as the Rays. The Rays are one of the more consistent franchises in pro sports. Any sport, you name it, they're just consistent. And we'll see what they can do in the postseason. They play against the Red Sox tonight, game 1. Tonight, that pitching matchup will be Eduardo Rodriguez against Shane McClanahan for Tampa Bay. And I think they're throwing out their rookie, Shane Baz, tomorrow night against Chris Sale. So Chris Sale, since coming back, he's going tomorrow night against Shane Baz, who's been fantastic so far in his young career. But we'll see what he can do. 5-0 still for the Houston Astros against the White Sox here, top of the 5th inning, with the White Sox have a man on after a hit from Luis Robert. But that series should be fun. With Milwaukee, Atlanta. Obviously, I think San Fran and LA will be the funnest series for me because it's the two best teams I'm interested in watching. There's so many pitchers for San Fran. They're like, who? They got Logan Webb going tomorrow and then Kevin Gausman, when the Dodgers are going to respond like Walker Buehler, who I just think is a stud from Vanderbilt University. And then you got Julio Arias, who went 20-3 this season against Gausman. So again, it's a mismatch on paper for sure. Then you have Alex Wood against Scherzer. Alex Wood used to be a reliever for the same Dodgers. So, on paper, it's very much a mismatch. But I do like the baseball playoffs. You have an afternoon game today. You have afternoon games tomorrow. You spread them out. Again, they're long. Most of these games, they do take up a long portion of your day if you're watching them. But again, I would say the Milwaukee-Atlanta series interests me just because it'll be the least watched one, I think. And, I think there's always hidden gems in that. Brandon Woodruff is a pitcher for Milwaukee that is one of the best in baseball that never gets talked about. And I think Milwaukee's another really good organization. They missed the playoffs last year, which was a surprise. But again, they make it easily this year. They're going to play Atlanta. Atlanta made the playoffs without two of the great outfielders that I've mentioned the last couple of weeks, without Ronald Acuna Jr. and Marcell Ozuna. But we'll see if Charlie Morton's got something left in the tank for the playoffs. We'll see if, Milwaukee with Colin Burns and Woodruff going in the first two games, what they can bring to the table with Christian Yelich, a former MVP in the outfield, and a number of good players. So baseball playoffs does look good. I think the wild card games are fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing the action over the next couple of days. And if I had to, I would say the odds of having a rematch last year's World Series is high between Tampa and the Dodgers. I do think the Dodgers will beat the San Francisco Giants, even though San Francisco had the better record and had a better head-to-head record against the Dodgers this regular season. I just think the Dodgers, we see last night Justin Turner hits it. He's one of the most clutch playoff performers in recent memory in all of baseball. There's so much. Chris Taylor hit the walk-off dinger. He didn't even start the game. So they have so much depth. Bellinger, getting some hits last night. He was on base for that winning run. So seeing him get back, and if he can have a good postseason after just a god-awful regular season, that could be obviously a huge twist for the Dodgers. But I think the Dodgers will win that series. To me, it comes down to Houston will beat the White Sox. I think Tampa will beat the Red Sox. We'll see Houston versus Tampa. And Houston, LA would be fun. Seeing those two, I think the Boo Birds would be loud in Chavez Ravine for the Astros. And if the Astros beat the Dodgers, well, that would be fair and square. 2017 would be put to bed, in my opinion, because there's no, garbage cans going this year. There's nothing like that. And if they beat the Dodgers, Dodgers fans can shut it because that narrative is done. But will Kershaw come back? Will Max Muncy be available? These are questions for the Dodgers, but they have so much depth. I do think them and San Fran, it'll go 5 games. But I just like the depth of the Dodgers to come out and prevail in that series. Today in the NHL, we talked a lot of NHL last night, but we got some sad news today when Montreal came out and announced that Carey Price was entering the voluntary player assistance program. And just for some knowledge, this program is normally for somebody that's battling an addiction or some mental health problems. Just a couple seasons ago, Bobby Ryan entered this program for alcoholism. He's stayed off the wagon since, and he came back, and he's on a pro tryout with Detroit right now, and he battled through that. So that was a positive story. But again, I'm not going to speculate on what Carey's going through. I know early on in his career, he did have some problems with alcohol, and hopefully it's nothing too serious. But when it comes to a matter like this, I don't really it's not something to have an opinion on. Addiction is something, it's so serious, as we all know. And all I can say is I hope Carey's okay. Believe he has 3 children. I know he's married. But I want to see Carey Price play. And I said this to my mother today, who's a Toronto fan. And she even, said yes. Even if you're a Toronto fan, you got to appreciate Carey Price because he's one of the best goaltenders of all time. He's one of the best players of all time. To me, after his playoff, he cemented himself as the starting goalie for Team Canada at the Olympics. And I want to see it. NHL players, like I said, to me, they don't need to be going, but now that they are, Carey Price should be there to win another gold medal. And this is obviously so much more important than the Olympics or a season opener next Wednesday. Who I could give a crap about that. It's just about the person getting better. And hopefully Carey can get in there, talk to some people, get some mental health help. And he comes out the other side, just, a healthier, better person. But yeah, I don't have a big opinion on it. It's just, I wanted to bring that up because that was news of the day. But I do hope that Carey gets some help in there. He comes out, feels better. And it's not something to speculate about. I think that's completely off course. That's why I'm not going to do it. I'll let people on Twitter talk about what it could be or what it is. That's just not my prerogative. But I just, Carey Price get better, and hopefully we see you in the Montreal net sooner rather than later. But I'm sure for Montreal fans, you'll be in good hands with Jake Allen. But just get better, Carey. That's all we can hope for. Tonight marks the start of week 5 of the NFL season. And, that means we're at the quarter pole, which is kind of frightening for me because I love football so much. But, week 5, we've a quarter into the season. A lot's gone down, some surprises, some disappointments, and I'm going to get into all that. But something I had to bring up, as I didn't this week, is Urban Meyer, the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And if you haven't heard about it or seen the video, last Thursday night, he played on Thursday Night Football in Cincinnati, and they lost on a last-second field goal. And he did not get on the charter plane back to Jacksonville. And just reading from some ex-players, this is just unheard of. A coach, even though they play this week, yeah, you have more time off because you play a Thursday. You're normally off till Sunday or Monday, get a couple days off for the body and to rest up. But the coach always flies back on the charter because that's just what the coach, doesn't get the time off like the players. He goes and starts game planning for that next week. He starts watching film, especially a coach who's 0-4, maybe trying to figure out how can I get this organization a win here. But Urban didn't do that. He stayed in Cincinnati and drove the 2 hours to Columbus, where obviously he used to coach at The Ohio State, and that's the location. And he was visiting his grandchildren with his wife. And Saturday night at his bar in Columbus, or restaurant bar, he was out having dinner, and some fans asked for his autograph, and he went over and accommodated that. But then a woman started dancing with him and grinding, for lack of a better term, on his lap. And obviously it doesn't look good. And, head coach, public eye, obviously the video is going to go public, which it did. And Urban had to come out and apologize. And this week it's really been him. He didn't make a whole lot of eye contact with the media, and he said he had to apologize to the team. And Shad Khan, the owner of the Jaguars, came out and said he's got to regain our trust for good reason. First of all, why aren't you flying back on the charter? Why? Okay, he said he needed to clear his head. He was getting checked out. Okay, you're 4 games in. You're checked out after 4 losses. Did you know what you're signing up for? You weren't signing up to be Tom Brady's head coach. You're going to Jacksonville with a rookie quarterback with a team that lost 15 games last season, 15 in a row. That franchise now lost 19 straight games. And second of all, don't put yourself in that position. Take a picture, but don't sit on a chair with a woman in front of you. First of all, I just think I hope his wife is okay with this, because that's a whole other kettle and fish about this, that she's okay with him, with another woman on his lap. That's good luck with that one, Urban. Probably sleeping on the couch for a while. But this guy had no credibility to begin with, because he's a college coach coming in, doing college type things. These are grown ass men. They don't want to be treated like college players. They're not going to stand for it. College players, you can boss around. You can do these kind of things. NFL, it's not happening. I just look at this and say, it's just amateur hour from an amateur coach. He's a coach's college football. And I don't know how long this is going to last. I thought they're going to obviously stink this year. They're one of 2 teams that have not won a game yet, Detroit Lions and Jacksonville Jaguars. They have a good chance at getting the number 1 pick again. But is he going to be the head coach next season? And I have my doubts, because it could just be Urban that says at the end of this year, my health's not good, or I have to deal with this, family, whatever, and he just resigns. I could see it happening. He did that at the Ohio State. He was under a lot of pressure there for some things that weren't that great. And wherever he's coached, he's always got baggage. Always. He started in Jacksonville, and he hired Chris Doyle, who's a strength and conditioning coach, formerly at Iowa. And this guy was openly a bigot. He was a racist who was calling his players at Iowa the N-word. He'd yell at them profanities such as get moving, you bleep. And he hired him. That was his first hire on his staff, was Chris Doyle, strength and conditioning coach. And the only reason Urban got rid of him is because people that had a conscience and the people that were actually, had a brain said, no, not happening. And Urban and Chris Doyle resigned. So you start off your NFL tenure by hiring a bigot as a coach, when going into an NFL locker room, at least 50% of your locker room, it's a 53-man plus practice squad roster, is going to be of minorities, is going to be African American. And it's just Bush League to me. I don't wish him evil, but do I think he's going to survive the year? I really don't think so. I really don't. He might survive this year, but I don't think he'll coach a second year. If I had to guess right now, and again, we're only 4 games in. This is one of my biggest hot takes, because I don't like to be that guy on a Monday morning that just makes just proclaims this team is going to win the Super. That's not me. You need way bigger sample size before we get there. But I can base my opinion on actions, and every action Urban Meyer has taken has been the opposite of what I would have done. And I'm not saying I'm a perfect person, because I'm not. But I'm not a bigot. I wouldn't hire a bigot. How about, we're in the world of social media and background checks. So how about do a background check, Urban? It wouldn't be hard. Google Chris Doyle, bigot, worked his players hard, 1 passed out, nearly died on the field, N-word. We'll pass. But he went through this, more than likely, said, strength and conditioning coach says N-word. I'm just going to get rid of that. Player almost died. No, it's okay. He had some ripped guys in Iowa. You're hired. Okay. But I don't know. Jacksonville, I believe they got Tennessee this week, and then they go to London and play Miami. And then it's their bye week. I think they could beat Miami, but You go 0-6, you get a bye week. It's a long week. Urban, what's he going to be doing on that bye week? Can you trust him to do something smart? And will this team, play hard for him? That's another thing. Well, to me, his biggest saving grace is if Trevor Lawrence likes him. Because you might say, I don't want another coordinator. We've seen that with Baker Mayfield. He had 3 coordinators in 3 years. It stunted his development. He got Kevin Stefanski. It's gotten progressively better over the 2 years. But you start with a coordinator. Then you go to Freddie Kitchens. You need stability. So that might be the saving grace for Urban Meyer, but we'll see going forward. It just doesn't look good for the former Ohio State, Florida coach right now in Jacksonville. But at the quarter pole of the NFL season, there's a bunch of surprise teams to me. I was going to put the Dallas Cowboys, but I didn't. And I did think this team would be better this year, but my big surprise team through the first 4 games is the reason I have them as my surprise team is because normally this team loses really close games, and they did lose one in week 2, but they find a way to lose a game, or they have injuries and they always underperform. And when I do this after 8 weeks, maybe they'll have a way different record. But my team is the LA Chargers. And the Chargers are just a team that always has so much potential. When they had Phillip Rivers, they had Antonio Gates, LT. They had a loaded team, but they never got over that hump. And even in recent years, last year with Herbert, they went 5-11, and they had the most one-score games in the NFL, but they lost them. They beat the Chiefs one-score game. They lose to the Cowboys in a one-score game, but they come back and beat the Raiders after getting a 21-0 lead. Normally, a Monday Night Football game at home, and it's a division opponent, they find a way to lose that game. But they battled, and Justin Herbert is just a stud. I thought we might see a sophomore slump. Baker Mayfield had a strong rookie campaign, and he didn't have such a great sophomore season. Josh Allen, in my opinion, got worse in his second year. Obviously, Sam Darnold did. So recent memory, Kyler Murray last season was not as good as he was in his rookie campaign. So, odds are you're going to regress. I just look at this guy, and how do you not love what you see? He's got athleticism. He's got composure. I think he's a quiet leader, but he can make every throw. He's just a tactician on the field. And you see him with Keenan Allen. I do think he needs to work on his connection with Mike Williams, but that's there. And then their defense. Derwin James is healthy. That's huge. Joey Bosa is healthy. So that's critical. They got good pass rush. They got good players in the back end, but they're in such a tough division. To be 3-1 after 4 games is impressive because they are 2-0 in divisional play. They've not played the Broncos yet, but you beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead, and then you beat the Raiders on Monday Night Football. That's a good start to your season, and you win 2 division games. So that's my biggest surprise thus far. I mentioned the Cowboys. They've been really good, but I look, they played the Bucks, and they beat the Chargers. That's a very impressive win. Then they beat the Eagles, and not that impressive, and they beat the Panthers. So somewhat of a lazy schedule. So not that it's not murderer's row, but I do think the Panthers are better than I thought as well. They acquired Stephon Gilmore from the Patriots. They're ready to cut him. I like that the Panthers went out and got Stephon Gilmore because it tells me that they're not just the Carolina Panthers of old. They're not just okay to be mediocre. They're telling teams, don't sell us short. I like Sam Darnold. I do think he's running the ball a little too much himself. He's got 4 rushing touchdowns over 4 games. They're 3-1. They got the Eagles this week. They get the Eagles and Vikings the next 2 games. If Carolina is going to be a wild card team, it's imperative that they play well over the next couple weeks. Because again, I look at the Eagles, you got to win that game. You're at home. Then they have Minnesota at home. Minnesota finds ways to lose games, win that game. Imperative to me. Then they go to the Giants. You should win that game too. That's 8-1. You have 8 games after 7 weeks. That you'll be 6-1 after 7 weeks. Then you play Atlanta. That should be a win. Again, are they going to win all these games? Probably not. But I'm looking at their schedule and saying you should win these games, and that's how you get into the playoffs. Is you win games that you should. You don't throw away games. I think the Chargers are prime examples of that. And over their next 4, I know they got the Browns this weekend. I cannot wait for that matchup. I think that's the matchup of the weekend for me. If I could watch, maybe after tonight's game, if I had to watch one game this weekend, Bills Chiefs is good too, but I would probably pick Browns Chargers. It was revealed that Baker Mayfield has a torn labrum, but their defense is legit. I love the Browns so far, and I love their roster. I think it's loaded with talent, but I want to see them play the Chargers in LA, and we'll see how that goes. So they play the Browns at home, so they could win that game. That's a toss-up for me. Then they go to Baltimore. That's a tough game. Baltimore's been really good so far this year. Then they have a bye week, so they get a break. They get a bye week, and then off their bye, the Chargers have the Patriots at home. So that's not a murder. It's a tougher schedule, but I think we'll learn a lot about the Chargers over the next 4. First 4, they pass the test of getting through games, winning games they normally wouldn't. We'll see if they can do that over the next 4. The biggest flop to me, this was easy. It's not the Kansas City Chiefs, even though they've been disappointing so far. But, they lose to Baltimore. They lose to the Chargers, both teams that are legit to me. Lamar Jackson, I can't speak highly enough of. It's the Miami Dolphins. And their defense was supposed to be the pillar of this team. And I look at them and say, you gave up 35 points to the Bills. Yeah, you scored 0 on offense, but you gave up 35. Josh Allen tore you apart. Then you give up 27 to the winless Colts. And you're playing against Carson Wentz, who's on 2 sprained ankles, can hardly move out there, and you lose to him at home. And I get it. Tua Tagovailoa is not there, but again, this defense got to be better. Give 100 yards to Carson Wentz, only at 8 incompletions last week, 2 touchdown passes, both to Mo Alley Cox. But I thought this team could push for the playoffs, be a 10-win team. And whether it's Tua Tagovailoa, Jacoby Brissett, I expected more from this defense. Xavier Howard, Rashad Jones. The pass rush should be better, and it just isn't right now. And this is in big moments because Miami has Tampa Bay this week. Yeah, they're not winning that game. So that's 1-4. Then they go to London, England, to play Jacksonville. Well, you should win that game, but it's London. Who the hell knows? Then they play the Falcons. You should win that game. Do I trust them that they will? No. Then they go to Buffalo. So they have a decently tough schedule over the next couple, but you should be better than 1-3. You went to the overtime with the Raiders, but I don't care if you went to overtime. You win that game. You beat the Patriots because you caused a late fumble. You're not competitive against the Bills. And then you lose to the Colts, who had no wins at the time, and you lose at home. And what this tells me is Miami is still looking for their quarterback. They drafted Tua with the 5th overall pick last year. You know who went 6th? Justin Herbert. The Miami Dolphins are going to be looking back at that pick for years to come because Justin Herbert is legit. And I can't criticize Miami a ton. I did say I wouldn't have taken Tua, but I didn't want Herbert at the time either because I watched him a ton at Oregon. As you know, I'm a huge college football fan. I watched him at Oregon. I just didn't see it, especially his senior season. He had a very lackluster season. And I even heard Dan Orlovsky, who I respect more than almost anyone, talking about football. He even said it this week. I didn't see this from Herbert. And I called his games, and I just didn't see it. And he found it in the NFL. But you drafted Tua with all his injury history. He's got broken ribs, and even when he's playing, it doesn't look good. And you draft the player 5th overall, especially at quarterback, and you think this is the guy of our future. Miami hasn't had a quarterback since Dan Marino. He retired a long time ago. You're still searching. And to me, Deshaun Watson might be that guy, but it's only coming next season. He get his legal situation sorted. Miami's the perfect destination. Like the Eagles are going to push for it. We will see teams will give up the farm for Deshaun Watson because he's a top 5 quarterback when he's playing. But the flop for me is Miami. You should be better than but your record is what it is. You are what your record says you are. And yeah, I was going to put the Bears as well, but Matt Nagy, aka Matt Gase, the Bears aren't a good roster, so I couldn't put them on. I didn't, but they have a better record than Miami. But so I would say the Dolphins, the Chiefs have been disappointing, even though they're 2-2. We'll learn a lot about the Chiefs this weekend because they have the Bills on Sunday Night Football. That should be a fun game. Others kind of disappointments to me. I would say the Patriots, in a sense, being 1-3 again. I had higher expectations for the Patriots and the Dolphins, so they're disappointing. Washington football team defense. Chase Young, I love this defense. I love Chase Young, and they've been so disappointing so far. They nearly escaped with a win against Atlanta last week. Now they have the Saints, and the Saints haven't exactly been great either. Jameis Winston and that team, they blow a huge lead to the Giants. We'll see if they can rebound this week, but we'll see who can come out on top there. But the Washington football team defense has not been strong, and they need to pick it up. They're lucky they're 2-2, but the Cowboys continue to get better. They have the Giants this week, but you're in a division that's weak. Maybe you can push the Cowboys, but it looks more and more like this is going to be a Cowboys runaway division, and we'll see. But yeah, I think they're a big flop as well. But tonight is Thursday Night Football, and it started week 5, like I mentioned, Rams at Seahawks, and this is a great game. The Rams are coming off a loss to Arizona. They had a huge win against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in week 3. I think they weren't ready for Arizona. They weren't ready for little Kyler Murray to throw it over the yard and for Arizona just to run it down their throat. But it's a big bounce back game for not only Matthew Stafford, but for that Rams defense, for Leonard Floyd, for Aaron Donald. Can you get pressure on Russell Wilson? Russell Wilson is similar to Kyler Murray. Russell Wilson was Kyler Murray before Kyler Murray came into the league, came from Oklahoma. But, can you contain him in the pocket? Can you get hits on him? Aaron Donald usually plays very well against Russell Wilson, but you're going to be in CenturyLink tonight. It's loud in there, and it's going to be tough. And also, I look at this as a huge game for Matthew Stafford. He did not play great last week against Arizona. He threw an interception. The game was a blowout, and they were never really in it in the second half. And in the past, we'd see Stafford lose the next game. He was in Detroit, but that can't be a crutch forever. You eventually have to win big games. You have to be in big games, and he just flat out really hasn't been. So I look at this as a huge opportunity for Matt Stafford to win, to be involved in a big game, to win it. And we'll see what happens. But, if they lose tonight, the Seahawks are 3-2 right with the Rams. And the Rams would be 4-1 with a win tonight. Seahawks dropped to 2-3. They would be 0-2 at home this season. But, at Seattle, on the road, short week, can Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford get it back together? I want to see what that Rams offense looks like tonight with all that pressure. And also for Seattle, again, their defense had their best game of the season last week, but can you contain Stafford? Can you contain Cooper Kupp, Deshaun Jackson over the top? So I'll be interested to see that chess match tonight between obviously Pete Carroll and then Sean McVay on the other side. But they played in the playoffs last year. The Rams came out on top. But you had Jared Goff at quarterback. A lot of changes since that matchup. But first of 2 meetings this year, and anytime you get to see Aaron Donald play, try to chase around a guy like Russell Wilson, who's already a Hall of Famer, is so exciting to me. It's just great television. Where Russell Wilson last week became the fastest player to get to 100 wins in an NFL career. So, a big achievement for him. But, it's week 5. We got headlines. Justin Fields is the new permanent starter for the Bears, so he'll get the start this week against Oakland. You have the London series start up. The Jets are playing the Falcons in London. Packers Bengals is a sneaky good game to me. Cincinnati's 3-1, as are the Packers. Since week 1, Aaron Rodgers has 8 touchdown passes to 0 interceptions. You're also seeing that defense average 2.5 sacks a game. So can that O-line protect Joe Burrow? Joe Burrow had a great second half against Jacksonville last week, but they can't get out to that big of a deficit against these Green Bay Packers because Aaron Rodgers will just chew them apart. Patriots head to Houston. Patriots have obviously lost 2 in a row after that tough matchup against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. This is exactly what you got to be hoping for. Houston has Davis Mills, aka the Mall quarterback, a rookie from Stanford. They got blown out, destroyed 40-0 by the Bills last week. But I think this is a game for Mac Jones to keep gaining confidence. This is a game where you had a huge game against the Bucs so that you outplayed Tom Brady. Build on that. Don't be check down Charlie all the time. Push the ball down the field. Be confident. And this is a team where you can take a chance. Throw a deep ball to Nelson Aguilar. He's got some jets. Keep throwing the ball to Kendrick Bourne, Jacoby Myers. Get confident with your receivers that, they're going to be there for you. And, obviously Houston, they look good in week 1 and half of week 2 with Tyrod Taylor, but it just hasn't been the same thing with Davis Mills. I expect the same result. Titans Jaguars in Jacksonville. Jacksonville obviously looking for the first win. The Titans coming off a loss to the New York Jets. Interested to see if A.J. Brown and Julio Jones are going to be in the lineup because we saw last week if, Ryan Tannehill is a very good quarterback, but he had nobody to throw the ball to. He really didn't. He lost Jonnu Smith in the offseason. He had Derrick Henry, but when Derrick Henry was taken out of the offense, Derrick Henry ran for over 120 yards. But in the passing game, there wasn't a lot there for him, and it was limited. Julio and AJ are both out with hamstring injuries. I'm not so sure they can get through this game without them. I think everybody thought, okay, the Titans will get through the Jets. I think if both guys don't play, I think we will see a win from Jacksonville this week. That'd be 2 straight terrible losses for Tennessee, but I don't love their defense. It's still very weak. It was one of the worst in the NFL last season. And, Trevor Lawrence played his best game of his career last week. He can build off that. Again, be confident in what he's doing. And I just don't see Tennessee having a whole lot of options. Now, if both guys play, I do think Tennessee will go to Jacksonville and pick up a win. We'll see. Lions, Vikings, that one will just be riveting. The 0-4 Lions head to Minnesota. Minnesota, they're 1-3. You could argue they should be 3-1. The Browns defense just brought haymakers to Kirk Cousins after that first drive last week. He only put up 7 points. I'm sure he'll be looking to add to his statistics this week. Detroit with Dan Campbell just trying to get his first win as a head coach, but nothing much there. Broncos, Steelers. This is another interesting game for me. Teddy Bridgewater has a concussion. He has not practiced yet this week. This game will be close if Teddy Bridgewater cannot play because I have zero faith in Drew Lock. There's a reason they went out and got Teddy Bridgewater, the bridge quarterback, pun intended. But he's playing very well. Last week, Baltimore, great defense, brought the heat. He got knocked out, did not play the second half, but Drew Lock is just not a starting quarterback in this league. And Denver still has a great defense with Vaughn and Justin Simmons and Chris Harris Jr. back there. But they only had 7 points on offense. Drew Lock threw a pick 6. So, and on the other side, the Pittsburgh defense is depleted, but what can Big Ben do? This could be a field day for Von Miller. If that pass rush, on the Steelers offensive line, they have a second-year right guard, a rookie center, a second-year left guard, and a first-year left tackle. That's on their O-line. They have no experience up there, and Big Ben just can't move anymore. He could avoid people it was so hard to bring him down. Now it's not that difficult. People are calling for his job, and I would get that sentiment if they had a viable backup. Playing Mason Rudolph, it makes no sense. He's not the quarterback of the future, and neither is Dwayne Haskins, in my opinion. So I don't see that as viable options either, but we'll see what happens down the stretch here if they decide to make a change and go. But Big Ben will start this week, but as it continues to spiral, we'll see if Pittsburgh can they got to win against the Bills in week 1. That's starting to look more and more like an anomaly. Dolphins head to Tampa Bay to play the Bucks. I think the Bucks, Tom Brady did not have a touchdown pass last week. I expect him to at least have 3 this weekend against the Dolphins. Saints, Washington football team I touched on. Bears, Raiders, Justin Fields is now the permanent starter, which is finally the right decision. Raiders coming off their first loss. Again, the Bears offensive line is still not great, but Bill Lazor's calling the plays now, not Matt Nagy, so I'm happy for Justin Fields' health in that case. See him get some run-pass option, use some spread offense. David Montgomery's out 4 to 5 weeks. They're starting running back. But again, you got Damian Williams. You had depth at that position. Damian Williams was the starting running back for the Kansas City Chiefs when they won the Super Bowl. So use the running game. Use the spread offense, run-pass option, bootlegs. Get Justin Fields on the move, and he can throw when he's on the move. That's what he did at Ohio State, getting vertical packages with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. Do the same thing. Again, Allen Robinson cannot push that far down the field, but you have Darnell Mooney. That guy can fly. Use him. Get Cole Kmet is a tight end. I'd like to see more of him if he can run deeper routes. So we'll see what they have in store. We'll see what the Raiders defense. Browns, Chargers. Again, that's my matchup of the weekend. I'm so excited to see that game. If Baker's really injured, if the Chargers can stop the run with the two-headed monster of Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and obviously you got Justin Herbert against Baker Mayfield, a former number 1 overall pick and then a number 6 overall pick of 2 years ago. San Francisco against Arizona, another divisional game from the NFC West. San Francisco's lost 2 in a row. They head to Arizona, and now they're saying Jimmy Garoppolo might play. He's got injured last week's game against the Seahawks, but he might play. And so we'll see. It might not be Trey Lance's time yet. They head to Arizona, who's undefeated. We'll see if Kyler Murray can continue his dominance. But to me, if you're Arizona, continue the balance. Chase Edmonds, James Conner, give them the ball 25, 30 times a game. Kyler, run when you have to, 4 to 5 times a game. You got AJ Green, you got D-Hop, you got Max Williams. You got great receivers. You got a loaded roster, and on defense, you get 2 of the best defensive players in football with Chandler Jones and my boy Budda Baker. Giants, Cowboys. This matchup smells to me of a blowout, but I doubt it will be. It's a divisional game, NFC East. Giants will come out to play. The last, I think, 7 matchups have been decided by 1 score. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens again this weekend at Jerry. But I like the Cowboys too much to not pick them. And then Sunday Night Football, you have a great game. Bills at Chiefs. Bills have won 3 straight since losing to the Steelers. The Chiefs defense looks god awful. They cannot stop anything right now. And this is a big test for Josh Allen. It's not a great defense, but what can you do against it? I think Tampa's got probably the best receiving core in football with Godwin and Mike Evans and Gronk when they're all healthy, AB. But you look at Buffalo, the Emmanuel Sanders pickup was a great addition by Brandon Beane. You got Stephon Diggs. You got Cole Beasley in the slot. Dawson Knox has taken that next step as an elite tight end. I was waiting for him to do that last year, but he's becoming an end zone threat. He's got 3 touchdowns over 4 games. Their run game with Zach Moss has gotten better, and their defense has always been good. Jordan Poyer, the leader back there, Micah Hyde, Tre'Davious White is a great cornerback. And then, you got some really good players as well up front in Jordan Phillips and Ed Oliver out of Houston. So that's really the football weekend. College football stacks up for a good one too. Iowa against Penn State at 5:00 on Sunday. That one should be fun. On Saturday. You also got Texas against Oklahoma. That one's always fun. You got Maryland, Ohio State this weekend in college football. Arkansas will miss. That should be good as well. I'm trying to think another. Georgia, Auburn, likely going to be a blowout, but I'll probably catch a little bit of that one. Kentucky, LSU is a sneaky good one as well. LSU is playing spoiler at this point, but Kentucky is undefeated in the SEC, and we're not playing basketball, so that's really something to behold here. But like I said, you got the NFL going, you got baseball playoffs, you got the NHL starting next week, everything's starting to come together here in the world of sports, and I love it. And as we stand, it's top of the 7th inning, 6-0 Astros. Dominant performance so far. Lance McCullers Jr. has gone 6 innings, 1 hit, no walk, 4 strikeouts. So he's been dealing for the Astros today, and it looks like they'll cruise to an easy Game 1 victory. But for everybody, great shows this week. I'm heading out to watch my sister play hockey, so I may do a show Sunday, just depending on how quick I get back. But that'll be game time decision. But I'll be back Monday with a pair of shows. But as always, thank you guys so much for the support. I appreciate it. I'll be back with more coverage, as you all know, very soon. But until then, stay healthy, take care, and we'll talk soon.